power of 10 times repeat. As a guitar teacher, you find that you have to learn a lot of information very quickly, and that people don't really want to wait 3 months while you deliberate and perfect the art of how to play a particular song. Indeed, with doing YouTube videos, if you're going to do regular YouTube videos, you're learning a lot of information quickly and have to put out weekly. And really, for me, I had to try and change the way that I practiced so that I could accommodate the being able to do videos regularly and learn a lot of information very quickly. So this is where we come to this idea of repeating a phrase 10 times. Often when people are practicing, they'll play something, say, 3 times and then move on. Now this concept of repeating something 10 times is not really new. If you took, say, weightlifting or exercising, you wouldn't go to the gym and pick a weight up and do 3 reps and then think, well, that's enough, I'll do 3 reps on this, and then move on to a different exercise. Or if you were going to do press-ups, you wouldn't do 3 press-ups and think that's enough for the day. It's pretty obvious if you want to progress, you would probably do 10 repetitions. Again, you would choose a manageable weight to be able to lift. So if you wanted to bench press your own body weight, if that was your goal, you wouldn't lie underneath your own body weight and struggle to try to lift it until hopefully that you would be able to do that, because it just wouldn't work. You would obviously start off with a manageable weight and gradually progress. And in a lot of ways, when people are practicing, they're doing the same thing as putting their own body, lying under their own body weight, hoping that somehow they're going to be able to lift that over a period of time. So how can we apply that principle to our practice? Well, a lot of guitarists, like beginner guitarists, say they're taking a look at something like the main riff from the Rolling Stones song Satisfaction, which goes... So something like that. I've tried this out with many beginners, and they immediately, know the particular song, da, 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 and they immediately jump straight in to play it at that speed, and then it all goes horribly wrong. So the equivalent to lying underneath your own body weight, hoping that you're somehow going to be able to lift it. So the secret really is to go at a pace that suits you, slowly. Speed is a byproduct of doing something slowly, repeatedly. The speed aspect will take care of itself. So say we took something like Satisfaction. Start off slowly. Then again. And again. Now at this point we've repeated that 3 times. So often with guitar students, when you ask them, could you play that particular riff, they'll play it once. Then if you say, could you play it again? Yes, no problem, play it again. When you say, could you play it the 3rd time, they all make that same confused look as if, well, I've already done it twice. Why would you want us to do it a 3rd time? If you ask them to do it a 4th or a 5th time, they would immediately think that you were being awkward or funny with them. And here lies the problem. When you're alone and practicing, you can practice that one riff and think that you've got it. But to perfect it, to get used to it, to be able to play it along with the record, you want to play it 10 times. So stepping out and just playing it repeatedly. If we take anything that we do and repeat it 10 times, by the finish we're going to know that without having to look at the guitar tab or without having to really think anymore, because that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to repeat things without even having to think. So if you take something like that, we've played it 3 times, now we're on the 4th time. 4 times. 5 times. 6 times. 7 times. 8 times. 9 times. We've done that 10 times. When practicing many times in a song, we might bite off more than we can chew, so that we can be trying to play the whole thing all the way through. A student yesterday was looking at a Metallica song. Then when it came to this, because that's fast, that particular, you kind of immediately knot it up. It just sounded really messy. So we took that isolated part that was tripping him up and just went, go through that slowly. Once. Twice. 3 times. Now already I'm on the 4th time, and you're probably watching this video and bored of watching me do that. And that's where the brain seems to cut off at the 3rd time. Doing it 6 times now, 7 times. You might want to switch the video off because you're bored, but this is channeling through. That's 8 now, 9. So sometimes when we repeat the same thing, we get bored and think, well, we know how to do that. But if you continue on, you find yourself knowing how to do it better. So we went through this exercise with this young student, and immediately when he went to play the track, he played it smoother and better. And it really took seconds. If you actually timed yourself doing something 10 times, it wouldn't take as long as you think, but you've isolated it and nailed it. So if you were changing a chord, say from D to C, just slowly and repeat 10 times, done it twice, 3 times. Now at that point where you're getting bored with me repeating this 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. So for a beginner to keep doing something repeatedly 10 times. Okay. And this works in different aspects of life. We can apply the principle to different things. I remember an example always comes to mind is in my garden. The previous people who lived here had a massive concrete base for a hut. I think it was about 10 foot by 6 foot or something like that. It was huge. It was like about that thick, massive base, and I'd went out with a mel, decided to destroy this piece of concrete. Smacked the thing with a mel, the mel bounced back up. I did some random smacks with the mel and had absolutely no impact on this piece of concrete at all. Decided that I was going to have to get a pneumatic drill to be able to get rid of this concrete. Found out that the pneumatic drill was going to cost a small fortune to be able to put a deposit down on it, and thought this is ridiculous amount of money I have to spend to get rid of this bit of concrete. So gave up, almost covered the problem up by covering this concrete base in wood chippings and put some plant pots on to try to disguise it. And it kind of parallels with sometimes what we do with our practice. We have a few goes at something, it doesn't kind of work, and then we kind of smooth over or cover over the problem. So a couple of months had passed and it was time to think, right, it's going to cost a fortune for this pneumatic drill. I'm going to go back out with the mel. So what I did was repeatedly hit the same part in the middle of the concrete base 10 times. Now it didn't take long, it took about 30-40 seconds, and the concrete base split, it cracked. So I had me leverage. I then further hit it another 10 times repeatedly at exactly the same spot, and the whole thing cracked down the middle. I then lifted one half of it up and threw it out the back, and then lifted the other half and managed to throw that out the back, and really solved the problem within a few minutes. And that's really kind of like what we're doing with the guitar. Sometimes you can have this monumental piece of music to try to work out, but if we take one section of it and go at it repeatedly and move on to the next section. We have something like that with, for me it was Bohemian Rhapsody, the little fast section there. Now I used to look at the guitar tab for that. I'd kind of fudged it a little bit and could get away with some kind of, which kind of wasn't really what was played on the record. And then when you do a video for it on YouTube being the animal that it is, if you don't get it exactly right, you've got a million people to tell you that you haven't done it properly. So you kind of want to do it more accurately. Now I put the guitar tab on the screen for this particular one. Now how I practiced that one and to get that quickly without spending months trying to perfect it was to go through that small phrase repeatedly. Not playing the entire guitar solo all the way through, just taking that one particular phrase and repeating it as such. Like that. Then again. I've just done that twice and that seems like a long time. And again. And again. Repeat it over and over again with repeating that and watching somebody repeating that over and over again 10 times. We start on the third, fourth time starting to get a little bit bored and our concentration goes. But if we can fight through that natural thing to feel like we need to stop after 3 or 4 times and continue on and do it in sets of 10, then we really will find that you start being more successful. You start taking in greater quantities of information and very quickly, because you're taking something that difficult that you would rather and might fudge it and not nail it exactly, then give up with it. Like in the case of the example of that concrete block, that you just give up at the finish. Just continue on with that same bit, then move on to the next bit and do exactly the same. So quite often we need to really give ourselves a manageable amount to do. Over the years, there's on very few occasions, and I can kind of count on one hand, the amount of guitar students that come. And sometimes you'll have somebody who'll book a lesson and then they don't come back. Now I can count on my hand how many times that's happened, but one thing I've noticed with every guitar student who's ever had one lesson and doesn't come back for any more, have all had one thing in common. They've all come, they've all asked, would it be better if I had 3 or 4 guitar lessons a week? I'm going to practice 8 hours a day. I'm going to start a college course as well, and I'm going to rule the world by learning to play the guitar. So they give themselves this monumental task of 8 hours a day practice. They're going to have 3 guitar lessons a week. They're going to join a college course and learn all the theory that needs to. They've bought a pile of books, and they've really given themselves this monumental task, and then they give up because it's just too much. Where the quiet person who just thinks, right, I'm going to do this, and they're going to give themselves a manageable amount to do, is more successful. So I hope that gives you something to think about. But always remember the power of repeating things 10 times.